We're excited about this. If you're tuning in online, with us this morning, thanks for joining us there as well. Hopefully this is going to be super informative. Does everybody have a handout that wants one? Right? Did anybody need one? Okay. Great. Honest. That's good. That's great. Cool. I think we maybe have a few. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray for us, and then we're gonna kind of roll through some stuff. You're going to get to hear from our staff today. You're going to get to hear from our elders today, and I'm excited for what we're getting ready to cover. All right, but let's just start with a word of prayer. Jesus, this morning we just want to say thanks again, just for your gospel, for your grace, for your truth, for your love that just continues to prevail. I'm just reminded of in Scripture when we find that we realize that the three things, or the things that we hang on to, right, are faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these are love. And so, Father, we're just so grateful for your love and the way you love your people, the way you love your church, and what you've done to provide and sustain for us over these last few years and months. And so, God, today we just are hopeful for what you want to do. And God, just like we say from the very beginning, our job, this is not our church, it's yours. And we just want to be faithful and obedient to what you want us to do. Lord, we love you, and we pray. Amen. All right, so I want to just start by refreshing our why, how, and our what, our vision, our mission, and our process here at Adventure. In case you didn't know that, you get an opportunity to learn it for the first time today. But we're also going to make sure that we just continue to keep these things in front of ourselves because this keeps this whole thing moving on the rails and moving in the direction that God wants us to go. But I do just want to say what I just prayed is real. We don't just say that. That is real in this place, right? This is not my church. This is not your church. This is not the staff's church or the elders' church. This is Jesus's church. And what Jesus really asks us to do, and what he asks us to do in order to be his church, is two things: be faithful and obedient, which really translates like this: show up and continue to trust me enough to do what I'm asking you to do. And it's interesting that we've talked for the last semester about faithfulness. We're going to talk next Sunday about obedience, which I'm really excited about. But really, obedience is that. It's, God, I trust you enough to do what it is that you're asking me to do. And so that's really whose church this is. This is Jesus' church. It's not mine. It's not ours. It's not the elders. It's Jesus' church. And we want to continue to be the church that Jesus wants us to be. And so we kind of went back at the beginning of the year, beginning of my first year here. Rewind back to last October. We started to just clarify our mission, our vision, our mission, and our goals, or our process. And so I want to put those back in front of us this morning so we understand what they are. And if you got your sheet, you can follow along with us. Our vision, which is our why, right? This is why we exist. This is the reason that we do what we do. This is the reason that this church exists. It's the heartbeat. It's the core of who we are. And it's this, we exist, right, to help people come as they are and become all that God desires for them to be, right? Which means that we're the kind of place that is not afraid of the mess and messiness that comes with everyday average life. We do not ask people to check their mess at the door. We do not ask people to walk in with some kind of pretense or veil or this illusion that they've got their life together. We get it. We're not afraid of messy people because Jesus wasn't afraid of messy people. And so this is why our why is what it is. Because we really and truly do want to give people the opportunity to walk through the doors of our church, or step in a D group at our church, or go meet one of us for coffee, one of you for coffee or breakfast or whatever it is, as they are. They don't have to come fearing I better have my life together. I'm going to meet with somebody that's a Christian, right? We want people to be able to come as they are, but then also step into that process of becoming who God wants them to be. That's our why. And then next to that is our what, or our how, rather. And how is how we accomplish this, right? So if you're reading this, they all flow together and make one complete thought. How we accomplish our why is we do this by loving God, loving people, and making disciples. We're going to talk a little bit more about this today, but people ask me a lot. I get phone calls or emails from people who are checking us out going, hey, what kind of church are you? And I know typically what they're asking when they ask that question is, what kind of worship do you do? Are you charismatic, or what kind of church are you? And my answer to them always is this: we are a disciple-making church. We exist to help make disciples who can make disciples who can make disciples. That is fundamental to our DNA and who we are. So that's how. So how are we going to help? How are we going to meet people where they are and help them become who God wants them to be? We're going to meet them. We're going to do that by loving God, loving people, and making disciples. And then the last one is our process. And this is what we do. So what our church does is we provide excellent environments where people can come and see Jesus. right? They can investigate Jesus. They can ask questions. They can bring fears, failures, and doubts into this place and come and see Jesus. They can connect with Jesus and others. They can grow as kingdom workers, and they can go make disciples. That is our disciple-making process here at Adventure. And you may see that little graphic around the building that just talks about, here's what we do. We come and see, we connect with Jesus and others, we grow as kingdom workers, and we go make disciples. And so this is who our church is. This is our vision, our why, our mission, which is how we do this, and then our what is our process of accomplishing our mission. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to ask the staff to come up and join me, and Christy Dorsey. They're going to share a little bit about something that we developed last year, the beginning of last year, and these are our priorities. We call them our high five. And so just so you know what these things are, we can throw that slide up. What our high five is, there we go. So our high five, these are our values and our priority. What a value is, like it says, is it's a person's principles or standards of behavior. It's one's judgment of what is most important in life, right? That's a value. And then next we have the definition of a priority. A priority is the thing that's regarded as more important than something else. And so when you put these together, this is what you get. Right, you get what our high five is, right? When you put these things together, our high five, our values and priorities work together to display our identity. They show who we are. And what these things help us do is they help us to live this with God life, right? That's unique and different. It's a unique and different kind of life that chases after what God desires for us. And so these values and these priorities, what they do is they help us to actively display our faith and our identity as friends of God. And so what I've asked the staff to do this morning is just share with you briefly just what these what the high five are, but also a story connected to those just so you can see how our church in the last year has pursued each one of these values. So I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to let them take it from here.
What's up, everybody? My name's Matt. I'm the worship leader here at Adventure, and I took on the first high five, which was "We live the way." Biblical authority. Obviously, the Bible is very important. The story that I pulled out of this is actually my own. I spent the better part of a master's degree trying to answer the question, like, how do we read the Bible and come to any kind of understanding of Jesus? And in doing that, you kind of look at how other people read the Bible, and there's lots of crazy ways that people read the Bible, wild things that people do with the text in order to kind of further their own agenda or theology. And kind of in the midst of that, I just had to flesh out the question of what says that my way of reading the Bible is correct over and above someone else's way, whether you're this ideological group or that ideological group. Why does my ideology why is that superior to theirs? The answer I came to in life, and not necessarily in study, was my relationship with Jesus. Jesus says, "I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." I don't get to be right with God except through a relationship with Jesus. And so, to answer kind of my question back in grad school, I read the Bible in a way that points to Jesus. As a church, we read the Bible in a way that points to Jesus. Are you going to be a biblical scholar as a result of being a part of Adventure? No. Are you going to learn about Jesus and have a relationship with him and grow alongside people who are doing the same thing? Yes. So in that way, we live the way. It's kind of a follow me while I follow Jesus. Hey, you want to learn about Jesus? Come to church. We'll learn together. We'll grow together. We'll hold each other accountable. Right? And more importantly than my story, you probably see it in your own life as you've grown over the last year and a half since we've established these high fives. You've seen that growth as you've connected in a D group, as you have walked along somebody else or had someone walk alongside you. You've lived the way, right? We've done it together for the last year and a half or so. So all that to say, the first high five is we live the way.
Hello, my name is Laura, and I'm the children's director here at Adventure. So the second high five is we are better together. And so our bottom line for this is that God never intended for us to do life alone. People are designed and created to partner together. You belong here. One of the key scriptures that goes along with this high five is from Ecclesiastes 4, and I want to read it to you, verses 9 through 12. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. The ministry that takes place here at Adventure happens because we are better together. Me, along with our staff and elders, we could not do ministry here without our church body. So I am blessed in kids ministry to have 25 amazing volunteers that serve throughout a month that come and give our kids a place to learn about Jesus. Justin and I just this year formed this partnership of the family ministry here at Adventure. Sorry, I need my notes. And the desire of this family ministry is so that we are partnering together with the families of Adventure to disciple the kids here. We have Matt and Brad who work hard with a team of up to about 15 people throughout a month that allow us to come together on a Sunday morning and worship God together and learn his word together. Kelly has a team of about 20 people who serve on the usher and greeter ministry, who are here on Sundays welcoming people and helping to serve those who enter our doors. Melissa has a handful of people who serve with her and lead discipleship groups throughout the week where we can gather together and learn God's word. So God never intended for us to be alone, and so we are just thankful to be together with you in our church body to serve his kingdom.
All right, what is up, guys? So my name is Justin, and I'm the student pastor here at Adventure. And the third high five is we step into the mess. And, you know, Matt, I'm so sorry, guys. The kids in the youth group know I'm the worst with names, even if I know you. All right, so Matt had shared that we live the way. Now, like he said, this is biblical authority. So how does the Bible call us to love other people? The Bible doesn't call us to love and care from people from a distance. The Bible calls us not to just love the people that are easy to love, or not to just love the people that are convenient to love, or the ones that are in our comfort zone. The Bible calls us to love the people that are dealing with stuff that honestly is pretty terrible. Like the Bible calls us to love everyone, right? So how do we do that? Like Jesus, we are not afraid to get our hands dirty, to go places where we're not comfortable, and we're supposed to serve people sacrificially. So our church offers some ways to do this. Before COVID, we had this thing called Wayside Christian Mission. Has anybody ever heard of that? All right, who in here has been to Wayside before? All right, Wayside is incredible. If you have not been, we're going to start doing this once everything starts to get back to normal. We're going to go back to Wayside. If you have not been, ask anybody in here that has. It's one of the most incredible ways you can serve here at Adventure. And what Wayside is it is a shelter for families. And I promise you, you go once, you're going to be obsessed with it. I love that place. And this is one of the ways we step into the mess, serve people that often aren't served. Love the people that the rest of the world does not love. We are to care for those people just like Jesus did. So we step into the mess.
Morning, friends. My name is Christy Dorsey, and I lead the Renew Ministry here at Adventure, which is for single moms. And so the value that I want to talk to you about is we bring hope to everyone. And the bottom line for that is that the gospel is best shared through intentional relationships. People have to know that you care before they care about what you know. And everyone deserves a chance at the real hope that comes from Jesus. So I think this value is really linked to what Justin was just talking about. You know, we want to meet people where they are. And with Renew, I get to do that a lot. You know, you all get to hear me talk about we're going to have the backpack event. We're going to have the clothes closet, which unfortunately I can't figure out how to do during COVID. But hopefully maybe when it's warm, we'll try to figure that out. But we have this new opportunity this year with a coat giveaway, which is going to be great. And this one we're actually going to do not just for single moms, but just for families that need winter coats for their kids or for themselves. And we get to step into that. And when we do that, we do it for a purpose. We do it because we want people to know that we care about them and we want to establish relationships. You really can get to know someone even in that little bit of time that they come in and say, you know, I need this size of a coat, whatever that may be. You can get to know, you can ask questions, you can get to know that person and bring them in, let them know, we're here every Sunday. We want to get to know you. We want you to know Jesus. And so that is really the purpose for why we do all these things. And I am especially blessed because at this point, we've been doing the backpack event for at least 10 years and the clothes closet for a number of years as well. And a lot of these ladies that come have been coming this entire time. So whether they have their own church home or they haven't taken me up on my offer to come yet to Adventure, they know I'm here and they know that we're here. And every time they come, they see different faces of people that care, people that want to help them and want to show them Jesus' love. And so that to me is always the biggest blessing of leading this ministry, seeing how this church body wants people to know, not only do I care about you, but Jesus cares about you, and I want to help you in his name. And so that is what I love to see, and I'm excited to see what we're going to get to do with this coat giveaway. But just to give you another little tidbit is that we do a discipleship group for single moms every week on Wednesdays, and that group has ebbed and flowed over the years in size, and that's always been fine because the people who are supposed to be here are here, and it's such a group of support and love and people that know that they're safe and they know that they can come and learn about Jesus in a safe place. And so for anybody who's ever helped with anything that we've done with Renew, I want to thank you again. Anytime I get a chance, I like to say thanks, because even just donating something to be able to let that event happen, we're helping us build relationships. We're helping get people to that point where they can come here and they can hear that not only do these people that you see in these smiling faces love you, but so does the Lord, and we want people to know that. So.
Good morning. Our last high five is we join the movement. And the bottom line up there says, Jesus came to start a gospel movement of multiplication through disciple making. We are commissioned and equipped to join his movement today. And when he talks about the commission piece in this bottom line, you know, that comes out of Matthew, where one of the key scriptures to this high five is, as you are going, not just go, but as you are going, make disciples, teaching them of what Jesus has done. We've been commissioned for that, but we're also equipped. And so the other verse that is attached to this high five value is 1 John 2:6. And what's funny is I actually stepped into a risk, frankly, a couple of months ago and joined a discipleship group that is led by a gal who basically her heart is for discipling women. Because as Brad said, we desire to be a disciple-making church. And I had read a quote and been reminded of it by a friend this week that says, if you plant churches, you might get disciples. But if you make disciples, you get the church. And so I'm not saying, and Brad is not saying we've gotten this figured out. We are on this journey right now to figure out how we can most effectively make disciples. And so part of that for me is joining this discipleship group and learning what it means to make disciples. And so our verse for this week was 1 John 2:6, and it says this: whoever abides in me, meaning whoever has said yes to Jesus, whoever has said I'm following after Jesus, whoever does that ought to walk in the same manner in which he walked, to walk in the same way that Jesus walked. And what Jesus did is that he walked and made disciples. And so he had those guys around him, and he poured into them the gospel message, the good news of who he was and the truth of who God is, and then said, I need you to go do this. And so here at the church, we are not to just come to church. We are to be the church. And what that means is that we also make disciples. About a year ago, another D group leader and myself decided we were gonna start trying this. And so in pairs, she and a gal and me and a gal started walking through this discipleship journey. And what has been cool about this, we've been using a resource that I don't think is the end all be all to how we're gonna launch the disciple-making process here at Adventure, but has been such a great guide. And so then what happens is after that pair gets together, then both of those pairs, they multiply, and they go do that same thing with somebody else. And so we've already seen that multiplication process starting. And so what we desire here at Adventure, this joining the movement, is we don't just want people to come in and consume Jesus and eat up all that who he is. Once they've made that decision, once we claim that we are followers of his, then we ought to walk in that same manner in which he's walked, which means we take the message and we're methodical about it, and we model what that looks like. And so what you have to look forward to this is kind of me pitching the future and the vision of Adventure, is that we desire to be a very obvious disciple-making church. And we're excited about that journey and want you to partner with us in that.
Awesome. Yeah. Good stuff, y'all. Hey, give it up for our staff. I mean, they're amazing. They are amazing. And here's what I would say, like, anytime you step, and I've stepped into new churches and new ministries and new ministry opportunities, and anytime you do that, you know, where a staff is already present, sometimes it makes it really difficult, right? Sometimes you face opposition or lack of trust, or it just creates friction. And I just got to be honest with you, the last year's journey for myself and our staff has been incredible, to the point where I would gladly take a bullet for any single person that was on this stage. And I think that we've gone from being kind of just a group of people trying to figure this thing out to a family that's willing to be vulnerable and share and ask Jesus to step into these places in our lives. And church, we have a really amazing staff here. And I want you to know that. Like, not many churches and not many organizations have a staff that's as awesome as ours. They are incredible. And beyond that, they all work second jobs, you know, or are full-time parents, right, which is a full-time job, right? So it's like the fact that our staff is all bivocational, except for me, right? I'm the dude that has no excuses up here, right? But still, I mean, that's amazing that they're willing to give, and they give all of that passion into those places in their lives. They're faithful to those places in their lives beyond the walls of this church, and then they come and they turn around and they're faithful and obedient in this place as well. It's just amazing. So I don't want you to take for granted the fact that we've got a killer kids ministry, right? That our youth ministry is outstanding, that we have a place for single moms to be able to come, the D groups that run on Wednesday nights, and those volunteers that help oversee those things, and the small groups that exist in this place. I mean, that they exist in this place because you got somebody like Melissa who's willing to stand in and equip the leaders to be able to do that. And worship on a Sunday morning when Matt's not fixing and selling air conditioners, right? He's figuring out how to play music and how to play cover songs that I tell him on Thursday that we're going to play a song by Fleetwood Mac. He's like, all right, we can figure that out. So it's just awesome. It's awesome that we've got an amazing staff team here that's able to do some of the things that we're able to do and help us to accomplish that mission. And so next, the thing that I want to share with you is it's something new that we're kind of rolling out today. And I'm going to have our elders join me for this one. So fellas, you guys can make your way up here. And while you're doing that, I'll just kind of explain to you we're going to talk about today is our wins. And so these wins that we're going to kind of unveil, they're the natural progression of our mission, our vision, mission, and process. So if you take our vision and our mission and our process, and you pair those things with our priorities and our values, our high five, if you put those things together, ultimately these wins that we're going to pursue should be kind of what flows from this, right? And so our wins, right, these would say, these are the mountains, right? These are the mountains that we would say Jesus wants us to summit. And we have not, these are the things we haven't just gone, well, these sound good, right? We've prayed about these. We started even in our staff meetings asking this question, and Melissa even kind of referred to it a little bit. Hey, what do we want to be? We want to be a disciple-making church. Are we there yet? No. What's going to help us get there? And really from some of these really healthy conversations, we developed these wins because these are the things that we want to continue to pursue because they're the overflow of the vision, mission, and goal. They're the overflow of our priorities, the things that we say, these things are more important than anything else, and they guide and direct our behavior. And we're going to use this mountain kind of metaphor through this, and there's a reason for that because I went to a retreat out in Colorado not long ago and climbed mountains, and it was awesome, and I came back from that with some cool stuff that I'm going to share with you here in just a minute. But what we would say is that these are the mountains that we feel like Jesus wants us to summit. And our staff and our elders, we have prayed over these. We have taken these things to Jesus. We have poured energy and effort into these conversations to figure out, all right, what are the mountains that Jesus wants us to summit, the hills that he wants us to take? And here's our commitment, right? And so as a part of Adventure, we're saying this is where we're going. And our commitment to you is this, and we're asking you to do the same thing back, to commit with us as well, to say that we will not compromise, we will not waver, and we will not give up, and we will unashamedly pursue these with everything that we have. And so I'm going to turn it over to the guys here. There's that mic. Who are going to talk a little bit about our wins.
I pushed the button, I promise. So I get to talk about, I think, the easiest one here, and it's decisions for Jesus. I mean, if we are not a church that encourages that, then we're not doing our job. Matthew 16:24, Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, pick up their cross, and follow me. That is our purpose as believers in Christ. Kim Miracle this week shared something on Facebook. I asked if I could share this, and she said it's all mine. So she was teaching something in her class, and they had a discussion over how a church measures their success or their metrics. And a quote she shared from Unreasonable Churches by Rich Birch said, "Are budgets, buildings, and butts your metrics for growth? It's so easy to get caught up in these statistics, and they are used to measure the value of churches today." Yes, those things are important. Yes, those things we can count as wins. Obviously, we're going to talk some about the budget today, but that is not the mountain. That is not the peak that we want to be our focus. We want people to love God. Like, our vision for this church is that we exist to create opportunities for people to come as they are and become all that God creates them to be. That starts with accepting Christ and being committed to him. So our vision for Adventure is exactly that. So 2 years ago, I had the privilege of getting to baptize my oldest daughter here in this church. This past week, we're sitting around the dinner table, and Clara was expressing her desire to be baptized. And that's the legacy that I want to leave my children and everyone that I come in contact with. That should be all of our goals for the people that we walk with every day. So that is our big win, and one of the peaks we're going to focus on. I'm going to pass it over to Josh here so he can talk about our next one.
That's awesome about Clara. All right, so next big win is on discipleship, spiritual growth, and personal development. And like Brad and Melissa's touched on, we are a disciple-making church. That's what the focus is. So I'm reading this book, and it's about ninjas. And this ninja is asking her sensei, she's like, why are you so hard on me all the time? And he said that partial commitment leads to partial learning, right? And it's kind of like that with discipleship as well, right? If we want to be a disciple, that's not something that we can just have a partial commitment with. And thinking about discipleship, I was like, you know what? I need a definition for it. And Urban Dictionary defines it as this: it's accountability, son. It's sharing life, right? And that's a little bit about it too. It's sharing life together. And every time discipleship, like the biggest verse that's helped me with discipleship is 2 Peter 3:18. But grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. To him be the glory, both now and forever. Amen. And it just like sums it up, because growth is continual. And like you've probably heard me say, if you've ever been like in a study with me, that change doesn't happen overnight. Change happens every night. And discipleship and spiritual growth, it is continual, right? So just want to like invite all of you guys to continuously work on that and continuously grow.
I did not come prepared with Urban Dictionary references, but that was good. Good. So I get to talk about community impact, and start off, we want to make a noticeable difference and advance the kingdom in our local communities and in communities around the world through the power of the gospel and by loving people like Jesus. So a lot of the stuff we've already heard from the staff is this very thing, is community impact. And I think about it a lot with missions, and I know when I first started on the finance team with Adventure a long time ago, Paul Nagy, you guys remember him, taught me pretty much 3 circles. So our local community, outside of our local J-Town community, the United States, what we can do there, and then internationally. And I've always kind of thought about community impact that way. It makes you think like just locally J-Town, but we do a lot more than just what we do right here in J-Town. So Christy talked about the Renew thing. Obviously, that's something really close to our family. And so many people have stepped up and helped out when, a single mom needed to move or she didn't have a washer or a refrigerator. People always step up and help out, and it's really the time that means the most there. We've also got Wayside, which we talked about. Trunk or Treat, there's 144 cars, I think is the number, which is amazing. And the backpack giveaway, was it 120? Somewhere in there? 120 backpacks that we were able to help out the local community here in J-Town. We do have a relationship with some family resource coordinators, Toley, and what's the other school? J-Town?
J-Town and Carithers, yeah.
And Carithers, which is awesome. I think that's a way that we can really just get in touch and find out the needs of people in the community as well. Not to mention JAM, we reach out to them and ask, who can use assistance, who can use help. So we do a lot of things locally, but then our 3 missions also are doing amazing things. Like I watched the video this morning with Franklin Graham, and like how long has that been going on? You think about the numbers of people who have been influenced by that, it's just pretty amazing. So that's community impact here at ACC.
Yeah, so this is why we want to put these wins in front of you, right? And when we initially sat down to have this conversation, and when our staff had this conversation, we kind of used the metaphor of a sporting event, right? And I think in our staff meeting, we used the metaphor of Ohio State football because they actually know how to score touchdowns, apparently. So they believe in the forward pass, unlike Kentucky football. But what we said was this, is like when you go to a sporting event, whether it's a basketball game or a football game or a soccer game, whatever it is, you go into that sporting event, you kind of understand what the wins are, and there are big wins, right? Obviously, at the end of the game, if one team has more points than the other, that's a big win. You won the game. But there are also little wins that take place within the game. Right? So plays begin to work, or you score a basket, a crucial basket, whatever that may be, or you call a different play, or you adjust your offense, or you adjust your defense in order to allow yourself to win. But the bottom line in this is that you go to a sporting event, as the crowd, as the person in the crowd, as the fan in the crowd, you know when to cheer and when to, when to let it loose, and when to clap, and when to cheer on your team, and when to encourage your team and support your team and bring them up when they're down, like those kinds of things. The reason that we want to clarify and define our wins is so like when Nick says the things that he just says, hey, we gave away over 120 backpacks to families in this community that needed backpacks and school supplies to get their kids ready for school. Or we had the opportunity to allow single parents to come in, single moms to come in and be able to get clothes for themselves or their families. Or we had 144 cars, over 144 cars come through for Trunk or Treat, which means that's carloads of people that get to experience the love of Jesus. What that should cue in us is the same kind of thing it cues when Kentucky hits a 3 from the corner, right? You go, yeah, right? That's what that should cue in you. It should cue the same thing when your football team throws a touchdown pass or your soccer team puts the ball in the back of the net, right? So I just want to give us now the opportunity to do that. We had 144 carloads of people come through here for Trunk or Treat. Yes, there you go. We gave away over 120 backpacks to families that need backpacks and school supplies, right? We had countless amounts of single-parent families come in and get clothes for themselves and their family, right? We're going to send boxes all over the planet that share the love and story of Jesus, right? Worldwide. We're going to have people from this community come in and be able to get coats and hats and gloves and scarves to stay warm this winter. Yeah, that's right. So that's what it cues in us, all right? So as a church, now you know how to respond, right? Like that is the expectation, is for us to respond that way when we start to share our wins, right? When we see somebody get baptized in this baptistry, this place should go nuts for that. When we hear about someone who is now maybe who's been a part of a small group and is now going to lead a small group themselves, we should go nuts over that, right? We should go crazy over that because that's the kind of stuff, right? I know heaven does the same thing, right? So we got to match heaven's energy when stuff like that starts to happen. And so that's my expectation. That's our expectation as a church. We begin to cheer out loud, not just the inside, like I'm cheering on the inside golf clap, right? No, we cheer out loud when we see these wins get achieved, whether they're the little wins along the way, because just like we use this metaphor of summiting a mountain, if you're going to get to the summit of a mountain, it takes a lot of steps to get there, right? If you're going to win a national championship, it takes a lot of wins to win a national championship, right? If you're going to win a game, it takes a lot of little wins within the game to have more points in the scoreboard at the end than the opposing team. It's the same kind of deal here. Every time we're able to take ground, anytime someone invites a friend to join them in a D group, and we have a new person attend a D group for a first time, boy, whoever that person is that invited that friend and that friend shows up, every single person, every single adventure person in that D group needs to follow up with that person and go, hey, great job. good job inviting your friend. Well done. Like, give them an attaboy, right? Like, it's like the coach, like slap, not necessarily, like metaphorically, right? And then put them back in the game, right? So, yeah. I mean, we've had Urban Dictionary references. We've talked about ninjas, and Eric said butt in a church meeting. So I feel like I can too. So the next thing that I want to do right now, I love this, and I do. I love, and again, I just want to say thanks to these guys. So for me, this is my first time ever leading a church. This is my first lead pastor job. And the elders that have linked up with me and chosen to go like, and I still am waiting for the moment when they look at me and go, whew, we're stuck with you, right? So far that hasn't happened, right? But yeah.
And one more big win. Brad just completed his 1-year anniversary here at Adventure. So, yeah.
1 year, including a pandemic. It's great. I mean, here's the thing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's awesome. 1 year. It's been great. I can't believe it's gone by so fast. But what I was going to say to these guys, I am so grateful and so thankful to these men who we meet on a weekly basis. We sit down, whether it's in person or over Zoom. They carve out time after 40, 50, 60-hour-a-week jobs and being there for their families. I mean, these guys are great dads. They are great husbands. They put their families and those kinds of things as their first ministry, right? They do that, and then they commit to this church. And so I just got to tell you guys, I'm so thankful, and I'm not just saying that because we're in front of everybody, but I am so thankful to be able to do this with you guys. You guys are awesome. We have amazing elders here at our church. So what I want to do is I want to kind of tell the story of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And we're going to use a budget to do that because budgets tell stories. Numbers don't lie, right? And I loved what Eric said, too. It's like this church, we are not going to determine or base our success on numerical growth and metrics and things like that. What they do is they tell the story of what really matters, right, which is what's going on in our heart, what's going on in the heart and soul of a place like this. But you know what? When you read numbers, when you read metrics, when you see those kinds of things, it does tell a story. And so we're going to talk about, I probably am one of the rare people, and I think I surprised our crew a little bit of like, I like budgets and I like numbers. Just because it's one of the only things in my life that occasionally makes sense. So I want to share a little bit about where we've been and a little bit about where we are and a little bit about where we're going. And we're going to use the budget to kind of tell that story. So let's talk about where we were. And that's in 2019. And the word that was used that was we kind of figured out what was the best word to use to describe where we were. And that is struggling, right? As a church, we were struggling. And here are some bullet points that kind of reflect a little bit of that. There was a very strong potential at the time of us having to sell our building. And when, like I shared the story today, these guys, I got the phone call from Eric saying, hey, Adventure, we want to extend you the offer to be our pastor, but we need to sit down at a Starbucks so we can tell you what's really going on. Even though they had done that beforehand, they're like, we want to sit down and meet with you. And basically at that meeting, they went, are you sure? Like, this is your chance to go, hey, never mind, guys. But I'm sure, right? And so we sat down and had the conversation, and they walked me through this stuff. There's a strong potential that we're going to have to sell the building. We were staring down that barrel of going, we don't know if we're going to be able to stay in the location that we're in. We were required at that point in time to have a guarantor on our mortgage. We had to have somebody else who was there to kind of catch us if we fell financially on our mortgage, to say if we can't make payments, that somebody else is going to help us do that. We received outside financial help to make our mortgage payments at the time. We had a very generous former member of the church say, listen, I'm going to help keep your the water line, keep your head above water in this time because I believe in this place. At the time, we had to go to all of our ministries and say, your budgets are frozen. You can't spend any money to advance the cause or to advance the movement or to go after any of these priorities in the lives of your ministry. So kids ministry, student ministry, disciple-making ministry, hospitality ministry, ushers, all that kind of stuff, worship, we can't spend anything. We are frozen at that point. And we operated at that point in time consistently in a weekly deficit or shortfall, meaning that the money that we brought in on a weekly basis through offerings, which you can see the average weekly offering was about $5,000, was in the ballpark of about $2,000 short of where we needed to be every month. And so it was a time where we were struggling. And if you look at this little donut thing to the left of those bullet points, you can see, and if you add up those percentages, it's not me doing math wrong, right? The percentages add up to 113%. And that extra 13% came from our Forward by Faith campaign, which is a financial campaign that the church started to be able to make updates and fix the parking lot and things like that. Some of that money that came in, we had to use just to keep the lights on and keep our heads above water and make sure that everything was functioning at that point in time. So you can see kind of where our ministries were. We were at that point in time, we were spending 48% of our budget on our payroll. We were spending almost half of our budget on our payroll. We were spending almost half of our budget on our facility. We had an overhead of miscellaneous and administrative costs, which these are things like office supplies. It's things like our internet. It's things like our insurance payments. It's things like that. That's what that miscellaneous and administrative thing. These are operational things that we have to pay was 11%. And then from a standpoint of missionary support and for our ministry budgets, those were only 5% and 4%. And our ministry budgets were frozen. I do need to tell you, our ministry budgets we froze. We did not freeze our missions budget. So even though we were going, at the end of the month, we don't know that we can make it, we still want to be able to support our missionaries, right? We were not going to leave our missionaries in foreign countries hung out to dry. So I love that our church was still committed to providing for those folks that are doing mission work around the planet. So that's kind of where we were. That's where we were in 2019. And at the end of 2019, we had a couple vision nights here, and things started to change a little bit, but there were still a ton of question marks. And so let's turn the page then to where we are right now, all right? So don't literally turn the page, just move down one little donut, right? Here's what it says, where we are. We are better. We have a finance team here at our church that is made up of volunteers, and they are amazing. I just need you to know, we've bragged a lot about our staff and our elders. We've got a finance team that's made up of volunteers, people who are willing to give up their time, energy, and effort to go through all the different line items of the church, to check all the numbers, to look for ways for our church to be more financially responsible, to have better stewardship, and things like that, to also look through where can we save, where can we tighten up, what do we need to do. They make recommendations on those kinds of things. They are amazing people. And so I want to highlight them because they're awesome. And a lot of the reason that we are where we are today is because they were willing to step to the plate and make some difficult decisions and help us make some difficult decisions and do the fun work of looking at budget sheets for hours and hours and hours on end, right? So the finance team did a deep dive into all of our expenses, and as they did that, they found that we were able to eliminate excess and reduce our administrative and operational expenses by a little over 2%, almost 3%. So we went from 11% administrative and operational expenses down to 8.8%. We were able to refinance our building in this time, and that removed the requirement for a guarantor, and it reduced our facility cost. So if you look at our facility cost in comparison from 2019 to 2020, it went from 48% to 42.2%. A 6% reduction in something that was already close to being half of our budget is huge. So it's a big deal that we were able to place to do that. The bank that we refinanced with said, look, you don't need a guarantor anymore. We don't need you to do that. You don't have to put somebody else's name on this mortgage in order to keep your building, which is a huge deal. We no longer needed that person. We no longer needed any kind of outside financial assistance to pay our mortgage. And I am really, really proud to say that nowhere in any of this time has Adventure missed or come close to missing payments in 2020, which is a huge deal. And in that too, in that same vein, you look at the average weekly offering went from $5,000 to $5,805. So the giving has gone up, and at the same time the giving has gone up, our average weekly budget in this place has gone down by about $2,000. Which is really, really helpful, right? So we have been consistently meeting our weekly budget over the course of this year. And I think it's something that I can say too, I can share this as well, is that our church is or has been cash flow positive for the first time in almost 3 or 4 years, which is amazing that there is not a deficit in our bank account or in our accounts right now. But we are, as a church, are cash flow positive, which is a great, great thing. It's awesome. In addition to this, I want to share a couple things, little highlights here. We now have in our building, we have part of our budget in 2020 was a fully funded line item, a $5,000 emergency fund for any kind of building issues or things related to the building, which we've had to use that for a couple of things. We found out that our backflow system didn't work the way that it was supposed to, and it's a real good thing we got it fixed, right? Because you don't want to flush the toilet and see what happens next, right? So we found out that we had to fix that, so we're able to fix that. We've got a contract currently signed with a roofer to come fix our leaky roof, which is awesome, right? So that's really exciting, and all of that is paid for by this emergency fund, by the fact that we have a fully funded line item to be able to do that. In addition to this, we were even within a pandemic, we're able to move forward very cautiously, I'll say, cautiously and intentionally move forward with looking at our staff team and giving our staff team some pay increases where we could, bringing some people who were staff but not getting paid onto the payroll for the very first time. That was a big deal. When lots of churches, I've got two friends of mine who are at two different churches. They're much larger churches than ours, but both of those churches have, in this time, laid off over 70 people. Not only are we not laying people off, we are looking at our staff going, hey, we can never, because you got into ministry, pay you what you're worth, right? If you want to get into a job for the salaries, don't get into ministry, right? We can never pay you what you're worth, but we can pay you a little bit more. And so we're in the process of doing that, of increasing some salaries, but also being able to bring people who were giving their time and volunteering their time onto the payroll for the very first time. Now, I do want to preface something, because you may look at this and go, so is Brad giving himself a raise? No. Right? I want to be super honest and super transparent in this. And I don't say this to go like, oh, pat myself on the back. We were able to increase some staff salaries. Mine is not one of those, right? So for me, it's like right now, my family is in a spot where we're okay making what we're making because both my wife and I work. We're able to support our family okay at this point, to the point where I don't need that increase, but some of our staff people, they could use that. Some of our staff people deserve that. And some of the people that have never been on payroll before need to be shown the actual tangible appreciation for what they do here at church. So in the middle of a pandemic, we were able to go to our staff and say, we want to offer some increases. And we're going to do that, again, slowly over time. So we're evaluating these things quarterly and looking at where we can increase pay for our staff on a quarterly basis as we're able to do that. Because we want to do it cautiously, we want to do it responsibly, but we also want to move forward in that as well. So that was able to happen. All of that has been able to happen in 2020, which is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. So where I want to turn the page now is to where we're going, right? So where we want to go. So where we were is struggling, where we are is better, where we want to go is bolder, okay? And this is what this is going to look like. And we're actually literally going to put our money where our mouth is, right? Our goal is to invest, like it says, and truly put our resources into funding the pursuit of our wins. So this is a 2-phase project over the next 2 years. This is what we want to do. But phase 1 looks like this. We want to increase our missionary support and our ministry budgets by 50% from the previous year. And what that means is, it doesn't mean that more money is going to go to existing missionaries. What that means is it creates headroom now for our church to partner with more mission partners. So we have the ability to bring on more partners into the relationship with our church that allow our church to both have an impact and fuel an impact that's happening around the world, but also potentially go on trips. I mean, that's a huge win for us. Our goal is sometime within the next year, whenever COVID allows us to do this, is for us to begin sending mission teams out of Adventure. And something that just started, they just had their first meeting last Thursday, is we, in addition to like we have our finance team, which is a team of volunteers, we now have a missions team of volunteers at Adventure. And their job is to continue to vet and add mission partners, to keep up with caring for our mission partners, to tell the stories of our mission partners here at Adventure, but also eventually work to leading mission trips so that you have the opportunity not just to watch a video about what we're doing in a country, but actually go there. That's a huge deal for us. And that's a big part of this disciple-making process as well, because like Melissa said, it's as you go, make disciples. And sometimes as you go means as you get on a plane, right? Or as you get in a car, as you get in a van and drive someplace, you're going to go make disciples. And so we are increasing the mission support budget and the ministry budgets by 50% from the previous year. Again, those ministry budgets it gives our staff the tools and resources that they need to get things done. I mean, I've watched our staff pull things off with duct tape and baling wire, right? I've watched them do it. They're really good at MacGyvering ministry. But we want to put actual tools in their hands because I believe that the talent that we have on our staff team, the leadership that we have on our staff team is so high that if we give them the tools that match their talent, you're going to see some acceleration in this place as we pursue these wins. And so we want to give them the tools to be able to do that. So we don't want to spend ministry money on buying more stuff. We want to spend ministry money on investing in people through our staff, through our ministries, and through missions. Now, that's phase one. Phase two will get us to a place, and again, this is where we're going. I'm giving you a little bit of a shot into the future as well. It's going to look to take these budgets from, again, you see the growth from 4.6% to 6.9% and 4.3% to 6.4%. We want to take each of those budgets closer to 10%, respectively, in 2022. So as a church, our church is literally tithing 10%. The 10% of what you give to this church goes right out the door to mission partners and mission efforts in our community locally and around the world. We want you to have that assurance that's the direction that we're headed. And again, our finance team, being as awesome as they are, said we want to do this over 2 years instead of it just in 1 year. We want to increase our investment in our staff and their growth and development, again, by looking for opportunities to increase our staff's pay where we can, when we can, responsibly. We want to be able to do that because they're worth it. And that's just the truth. They're worth it. And then we want to stabilize and continue to look for opportunities to reduce our fixed costs in that. So that tells a little bit of the story about where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go. Now, before we kind of wrap this up, we've got one more thing that we want to share, a couple more things we want to share. But before we wrap this up, we just want to give you the opportunity. If you've got questions in this moment, you can ask those questions. We want to be transparent and honest. If you want to email us questions, if you have questions maybe later that you go, I would rather ask this over email and not in a room full of people, you can email our elder email address, which is accelders@gmail.com, right? accelders@gmail. That was a test. You guys failed. accelders@gmail.com is our email address. Kelly, did I get that right? Kelly's going to look it up. I looked at Kelly. So just, Kelly's a lot of time is my barometer on how things are going. So when Kelly immediately looked at her phone, I'm like, Kelly, is that right? Yeah. Confirm that with me. Yeah. So feel free to email us questions there as well. You can email us questions there. I know that we're looking at our watches and it's probably time to start rolling out pretty soon. But we want to be transparent and honest. If you've got questions, now's a great time to ask them. Going once, going twice. Sold. You can email your questions to our email address whenever Kelly finds it. So here's what I want to share with you next, and that is you may look at this and go, all right, how do we get there? How do we get to the place that we want to get to? And so you're going to turn, if I can, I'm trying to do this one-handed. There we go. You're going to turn over to the next page. So here's what it looks like. So if we go from 2020 to 2021, you can look at this and see we're looking at what we're asking to do and what we're hoping to do and what we prayerfully believe we need to do is we want to increase our budget by 8%, which is over $21,000 from the previous year. And you go, all right, how are we going to do that? Well, here's how we're going to do that. Right? This is what it looks like for the rest of our crew to get involved in this. You may ask the question, this may be the question you're asking, how much more will each family who is currently giving to ACC need to give in order to accomplish our phase one goal, in order to increase our missions budgets and our ministry budgets by 50% over the next year? It's going to cost you $1 a day, right? Which you can cue like the Sarah McLachlan music at this point, right? Right? For $1 a day. But this is what it is. I mean, this is crazy. So this is what this is one of the projects that our finance team has been working on really hard over these last few months, is figuring out what this would take. And I was super excited when Scott emailed me and called me and said, all right, I've got the numbers. I'm going to break it down for you. Here's what it costs here's what it would take for each family who's currently giving to Adventure to commit. Here's the commitment that we need from each family currently giving to Adventure in order for us to accomplish our phase one goal, which is to increase our missions budget and our ministry budgets. $7 a week. $14 biweekly, right? $30 to $35 a month, $360-ish a year. That's what it's going to cost. And so that's what I'm asking. So there's an ask today from our church. I'm asking if you're currently giving to Adventure, will you consider increasing what you're giving to Adventure by this amount? Right? And so this is something that I need to tell you. This is not an ask that I'm making to say, well, you're going to do this, but none of us are. No, we've already talked about this. Our elders, we've already talked about this. Our staff, we've already talked about this. There's commitment from the leadership of your church to go first. Why? Because speed of the leader equals speed of the team. So our staff and our elders have already committed to say, yeah, we're in. We're in for this. So now we're asking you to make the same commitment. We're asking if you will commit to do this with us. Now you can look here and go, okay, so what's going to help accelerate this? Like what's going to make this whole thing happen? And if you look at, below, and this is not in our slide deck, but this is on your notes, so you can kind of take this home and look at it. You can see what the average number of families, or this sounds really cold and corporate. Don't take this as an insult. Giving units, right? That's just what it's called, right? But how many families or individual people are giving to Adventure, and when they're giving to Adventure? And you can see kind of the breakdown of those in that next little drop down in your notes of what that looks like. So here's what would accelerate this. Here's what would accelerate this. So if you're looking at that and go, okay, I know where I fit or where my family fits in these categories of how often we give. Here's what would accelerate this. It would accelerate it if you said, look, if I'm a one-time giver, if I've given one time over the last 6 months, what if instead I became a quarterly giver? What if I gave 4 times this year? If you were a quarterly giver, meaning you gave 4 times this year, what would it look like for me to move from quarterly to monthly? Could I do that? And monthly givers, what would it look like for us to consider going to recurring, which means weekly or biweekly? That's going to accelerate our ability to do this. It's going to give us the ability to go after and accomplish more as we press forward in this, right? So there's some instructions below here. If you're like, okay, how do I do that? How do I set up recurring giving? How do I do those kinds of things? There's a QR code that you can scan. And when you set this up on the Church Center app, there's an option, and I want to make sure that I communicate this, to give through ACH, which means it's instead of giving through your debit card, you're going to tie your checking account to this, and it's all secure and it's all safe, I promise. But when you do the ACH option, when you give via credit card or debit card, it charges 2.5%. Is that correct? Yeah, so close to 2.5%, a little over 2.5%, which then either you pay that, so it comes out of your gift, or you can click a little box that the church pays that above and beyond, right? So that's how that works. When you give via ACH, which is the checking account deal, it's 25 cents regardless. And again, you can choose to pay that for the church, which means you're going to add 25 cents a month to your gift. And if you give weekly, it means you're adding $1 to your gift over the course of a month. But it doesn't take a percentage of your gift, right? It just is 25% flat, and that's a processing fee for us to be able to offer the electronic giving deal. But we need you to do that. If you've not set up your electronic giving or your e-giving yet, our encouragement to you would be to do that and do it setting up via ACH. And if you scan this little QR code, it takes you to a video that shows you how to do that. And you can set up all your frequency and all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for ways, if you're looking for ideas, like how do I save $7 a week? We've got some on here, right? Skip Starbucks for 1 day or 2 days, depending on what you get, right? Skip Starbucks for a day or two this week. Take your lunch. If you go to a place where you go out to lunch all the time, take your lunch a couple of days a week instead of eating out at a restaurant. Buy the generic brand of cereal or food or toiletries, right? But not Oreos. Do not buy the generic brand of Oreos because you cannot replace those. And then the thing for us, and Christy and I sat down and talked about this, and there's a reason I included this on this handout, is run everything that you're getting ready to buy through a filter of, do I want this or do I need this? And if it's a want, ask yourself, all right, I want this, but do I want this more than I want for Adventure to be able to support missionaries and our ministry budgets? So just run it through that filter. And you may go, I want it. Okay, right? But find ways to save money. These are ways to save $7 a week. So if we can hit the next slide. I'm not sure where we're going from here. Right. So yeah, here's what we would say, and this is something that was shared at one of our elder retreats. And so this is what I love. This is a great quote. I think Eric, you're the one that shared this. That we would say as a church, and as your leadership, as we're looking at you, what we are not asking for is equal giving. We are not asking for everybody to contribute the same amount over the course of a year. But what we are asking for is an equally shared sacrifice, meaning that whatever you can give, you choose to do that. Whatever you're able to give, you can choose to do that. Because again, like we talked about, it doesn't matter what your gift is. Jesus doesn't look at your gift and go, well, this gift that's way bigger matters more over here than this one that doesn't. He looks at those things the same. And so as a church, this is what we're asking you to commit to and join us on, and allowing our church to continue to press forward, to summit the mountains that we want to summit, to get to the summits of decisions for Jesus and discipleship and community impact. We're asking that you would equally share in the sacrifice with the rest of us here at Adventure. And what I said here, there's a little quote, there are a couple little quotes. It's like the beauty of the church working together as a collective, right? What we're able to do together is exponentially greater than what we're able to accomplish on our own. Everybody gets a chance to be involved, and no sacrifice or offering is seen as greater than another. There's an old phrase that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so we realize that we may have to move a little slower. Okay, we're going together. That's what it's going to take, because we're willing, we're committed to that. And then there's a scripture there, too, that I just want to read as we wrap up. I've got one more story after this, and then we'll wrap up. But I love this in Acts 2. As the church began and became the church, it says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship and the breaking of bread and prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. It says all the believers worked together and had everything in common, which doesn't mean that they were all alike. It meant that what they said was basically, we're all in this together. Everything that we own, everything that we are is now held in common with this place. It says every day they continued to meet together in temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who are being saved. That's why we do what we do. That's why we sell our possessions and we give to the poor and we pool our resources and we give to those who have need. That's why we want to structure our budget in this place around people and not around places or stuff, because we want this to happen. We want to matter to the city of J-Town, not because we want to be a famous church, but because the city of J-Town and the communities around J-Town know, hey, the people at Adventure, they will take care of you. We want to matter to the places and people in our neighborhoods because we love them like Jesus. And we want our numbers to grow, not because we put on a cool show or have a cool building or cool lights, but because in this place, you're loved like Jesus. That's what sets us apart. You guys, you got anything else you want to add before I share the last story? Cool. Awesome. I'm going to share one more story, and then we're going to go out of here worshiping today. I think I've got, are there any more slides back there, Morgan? I think there's a picture. Is there a picture next? Yeah. All right, cool. So, yeah, you guys are good. So like I told you, I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to go out to Colorado for a lead pastor's retreat. And the second day we were there, and I knew this was going to happen, because I hate this. They said, we're going to do a solitude exercise. And I just need to tell you, I would rather have my arm chewed off by a toddler than spend time by myself. I think that there is a room in hell that is just a day of solitude, right? I know that it's a spiritual discipline and a spiritual practice, but I look at it like, like I don't want to spend time by myself. And I walked up, I hiked up this ridge to this big rocky mountain in the Rocky Mountains, and to where I could see out over this valley. And they gave us a workbook to help us get started in this day of solitude. And I started to do some of those activities. But before long, I just started praying for our church. I started praying for people in our church by name. I started praying for our elders and their families. I prayed for our staff and their families. I prayed for families in our church that I know are hurting and going through a lot right now. I prayed for my wife and my kids and my parents and my family. And I was led to this place where I started reading the story of Joshua. And Joshua, when he leads the nation of Israel across the Jordan River into the Promised Land. And when they do that, they made these altars, right? They made these stones so they could kind of remember their journey. And so I just started picking up stones. And as I would pick up a stone, I would pray for a person, and that stone became a person, and I would put that stone down. And before long, this pile of stones that I made was about 4.5 feet high. And I just started to pray and ask God, like, what do you want to do with me? Like, what do you want to do with our church? Because I'd been asked some questions at this retreat from other pastors about what's going on in your city right now, what's going on, what are some of the things that you're dealing with, what are some of the struggles that you're facing, and I look at some of the struggles that are going on in our city, in our world, in our nation, and they feel like giants. Just like the nation of Israel didn't want to go into the promised land the first time because they said, there's giants in there, we're afraid of them, they can beat us. I feel the same way sometimes when I look at our city and I look at the division in our city, when I look at injustice in our city, when I look at racism, when I look at the people who are hurting because of the color of their skin or because of the way that this pandemic has impacted them, that they can't pay their bills, that they're facing eviction, that they're dealing with not being able to put food on the table or put clothes on the backs of their kids. And I look at that and I said, you know what, I feel like there's the prevailing sense in our city right now is hopelessness. And hopelessness feels like a giant. And I don't know how to conquer giants. And as I stood there, I realized, I looked out over, this was my view, so this is where I was standing. And I looked out over the front range of the Rocky Mountains, and I said to God, the things that I feel like are in our community and in our city and the things that our church are facing, they feel like mountains. And I don't know how I can change that. And it's not like that moment the sky opened up and God spoke to me, but I had I had no cell phone reception. Luckily, I had like a few worship songs on my phone, and I had my AirPod thing in one ear and not in the other ear because the guy told me that there was a moose and a mountain lion. And I'm like, I want to hear them if they're coming up behind me, right? So I have one ear open and one ear listening. And this song, it's a song that I love, and it's a song that I used to sing a long, long time ago when I was in a worship band. Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble? Came on. And shoot. When you read and hear the lyrics of this song, you realize it's not up to us to move mountains. It's not our hope that moves mountains. It's not our hope that kills giants. It's not our hope that restores hope into a city that's divided. It's not our hope that restores hope into a country that's divided. It's not a politician in an office that does that. It's Jesus. And what Jesus in this moment said to me is like, he said in this moment, like, Brad, I don't need you to figure out hope for Jeffersontown. I don't need you to figure out hope for Louisville. I don't need you to figure out hope for Kentucky or the United States or the planet. I just need you to get my hope in front of people. Let me move the mountains. Just follow me. And it was in that moment I could breathe, even up at high altitude, right? I could breathe. It was like a weight came off of my chest. The problem is not mine to solve. The problem is not ours to solve. The truth is Jesus already solved the problem. What he's asking us to do is just get his hope in front of people. Like we talked about today, get him and people in the same room. And so the song that we're about to sing and that I want us to go out with worshiping today is Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble? Because this song is the anthem to me of the Big C Church. And it should be the anthem of the Big C Church. And I believe that the Big C Church has lost its anthem. I think we've become about metrics. I think we've become about butts and seats. I think that we've become about measuring and figuring out ways to have the flashiest, coolest live stream, XYZ, this, that, or the other. I think that. I believe that. And what I want our church to do today is reclaim our anthem, to reclaim our why, to reclaim our fight song. And this is it. So the band's going to play this, and then we are going to be done today. And if you've got questions or you want to chat after this, you can do that. So we're going to go out of this place today worshiping and singing this song. Take it away.
Did you feel the mountains tremble? Did you hear the oceans roar when the people rose to sing of Jesus Christ, the risen Lord? Did you feel the people tremble? Did you hear the singers roar when the lost began to sing of Jesus Christ, the saving one? We can see that God, you're moving a mighty river through the nations. Young and old will turn to Jesus. Fling wide you heavenly gates, prepare the way for the risen Lord. And open up the doors and let the music play. Let the streets resound with singing. Songs that bring you hope, songs that bring your joy. Dancers who dance upon injustice. Do you feel the darkness tremble when all the saints join in one song? And all the streets flow as one river to wash away our brokenness. And we can see that God, you're moving. A time of jubilee's coming, where young and old return to Jesus. Fling wide you heavenly gates, prepare the way of the risen Lord. And open up the doors and let the music play. Let the streets resound with singing. Songs that bring your hope, songs that bring your joy. Dancers who dance upon injustice. And open up the doors and let the music play. Let the streets resound with singing. Songs that bring your hope and songs that bring your joy. Dancers who dance upon injustice. Did you feel the mountains tremble? Did you hear the oceans roar when the people rose to sing of Jesus Christ, the risen one? Guys, have a great day. Go out and be the church.